Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Inside Sports Recruiting, where we talk to athletes about their college recruiting experiences. Today's episode is a very special one as we have our first Jamaican on the podcast. Jada Thomas is an ideal student athlete who excels both in her sport and the classroom. Originally from Kingston, Jamaica, Thomas attended one of the most prestigious high schools in Jamaica, Immaculate Conception High School. There, she excelled on the track and in the classroom, with her top achievement being finishing fifth in the 100-meter hurdles at the internationally recognized Grace Issa Boys and Girls Jamaican High School Track and Field Championships in 2018. Throughout her 7 years at Immaculate, she was also on the honor roll every year, striking the perfect balance between academics and athletics. Being the talented athlete she was also a member of the swim team in high school. Impressive feat considering Immaculate has the top women's high school swim team in Jamaica. After dazzling all around in her home country, she made the move to the United States to study and run track at Liberty University. She impressed in her freshman season at Liberty, lighting up the track with Atlantic Sun Conference indoor and outdoor titles in the 60-meter hurdles and 100-meter hurdles, respectively. With her performances, she was twice named to the All Atlantic Sun first team. She showed her prowess in the 100 meters as well, helping her team to All Atlantic Sun second team honors in the 4x100 relay. After a year at Liberty, she decided to make the move from Lynchburg, Virginia to Villanova, Pennsylvania to attend Villanova University. The civil engineering major made an immediate impact to the Wildcat Sprint Hurdles group, storming to a Big East indoor title in her first season with the team. She was primed for similar performances in the outdoor season, but it was canceled, unfortunately, due to the COVID-19 pandemic. With only an indoor season completed in her first year, she was named to the All Big East for her performances. Though her second season was abbreviated due to the pandemic, she still made the most of it, capturing two third place finishes in the 100-meter hurdles and 4x100 relay at the Big East Outdoor Track and Field Championships back in May. In addition to her greatness on the track, she's picked up where she left off at Immaculate, continuing her academic prowess. She has been named to the athletic director's honor roll in every semester that she's been at Villanova, and she's a member of the Big East All Academic Team and the United States Track and Field and Cross Country Coaches Association, USTF CCA All Academic Team. Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce you to Jada Thomas. How are you doing, Jada?
I'm good, Jesse. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, most definitely. How was your training during the COVID-19 pandemic? How did it affect it?
Well, in the beginning, it kind of halted everything altogether. So we didn't have any training between March and let's say the summer. During the summer, he gave us like our own training to do, but it was still kind of difficult because where I lived, the tracks were closed. So I just had to make do with maybe the roads around where my aunt lived. So I just did a few stuff outside. And then coming back to school, it was also really difficult because it was in the winter and a lot of the training facilities that we use were closed due to COVID. So it was really challenging and we had to change a lot of things. But I think we made it through and we did pretty well coming the past outdoor season. So yeah, it was a challenge, but we made it through.
Yeah, it's been a challenge for a lot of athletes haven't been able to, still now haven't been able to train fully or train properly.
Yeah.
So like when everything first shut down back in March, did you go home or did you stay on campus for a little and then go home?
I actually went to my aunt's house. So I stayed with my aunt. She lives in Maryland. And I was planning to come home this summer. But because everything was uncertain with me even coming back to school, because we weren't sure what the government would do in terms of me coming back to the US for the fall semester, my family decided to just let me stay with my aunt. So I didn't come home. I wasn't at home all of 2020. So I came home maybe late Christmas. But I just stayed at my aunt in Maryland.
So how were you able to deal with that, not being able to see your family for so long?
I don't know. I think it was very difficult, but I spoke to them very regularly. But it was still very sad because I think that was the longest I've ever been away from home. So it was very difficult. But I spoke to them pretty regularly and they were really helpful through all of it. So I managed.
That's good. That's good. All right, let's dive into your track and field career. Oh, before we get into that, just how was your how was your past season? How was that like affected by COVID?
I think it was affected a lot. I don't think I did as well as I wanted to. but I really did try hard. I think it really pushed me mentally, more than physically, but it wasn't the outcome that I wanted, but I think I really pushed through, especially the indoor season. It was really difficult. And I'm not really sure exactly where the turn point came, but I think I really pushed through mentally. It wasn't the best, but I really learned a lot about myself and track during that time. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, considering like seeing you got two third place finishes at Big
Yeah.
East, that's definitely great considering all the challenges that were like posed to you. It's definitely a great job this season. Just looking
Thank
at your results. All right, so let's now dive into your track and field career. So tell me, like, how did you get into track and field?
uh I'm honestly not really sure how I got into it because I was a much better swimmer than I was a runner. I surprised a lot of my family members saying that I wanted to switch to track because I was actually really slow. I was really, really slow. And every time I trained, my coaches were like, girl, this might not be for you. But I really pushed through and I think I loved track because every single year I got better and better at it. So that's kind of what pushed me through because I'm not really sure how many listeners are from Jamaica, but you have to qualify for the boys and girls championships here in Jamaica, and it's honestly it's not that hard. Like if you have some sort of ability in track and field, it's not that hard to qualify. But I did not qualify until I was probably in grade 9, I think, and even then, I think I came last. I came eighth in the heat, so I didn't even make it through any of the rounds in grade 9, and I wasn't doing hurdles at that time, but I don't know. I just continued, and each year I got better and better to where I am now. So that's what I really loved about track. So that was the beginning of my career.
So what was the reason for you switching from swimming to track and field?
I think it was the accessibility because in prep school, because I think I started swimming when I was 2, and I've been swimming up until then. Like all my schools that I've been to had like traveling, going to do swim practice, and they had like good swim programs. But when I came to Immaculate, it was really difficult for me to start swimming because I'd have to join a club, and at that time my mom didn't drive, and then it would be too expensive to go back and forth between school and to train at Immaculate, to get on the level that kind of I was at. It wouldn't really help me really to just be a part of the Immaculate swim team. I'd have to join a club to like progress my career even further. So I didn't think it was worth it like during the time when I just started high school.
Interesting. Yeah, I think it's definitely a problem in, I mean, not just Jamaica, but in a lot of places that, the accessibility for sports like swimming, where,
Yeah,
just like trying to get to pools and like also the cost of swimming compared to other sports is so
yeah,
expensive that it limits a lot of people from
yeah.
being able to do swimming and sports like that. All right, so let's just go into talking about how did you end up getting to the United States and college. So, when did you decide that you wanted to pursue track and field in college?
Um, no, I think I've always wanted to come to the US to run because I think that's just the influence from people that were older than me that did track. A lot of people that came to my school, that was just the path that they took, and I really looked up to them for that. So I was like, you know what? I think this is a path that I want to take, and I also wanted to experience something different than what I was used to growing up. So I was like, I think it'd be cool to leave the country to just learn and experience new things, and especially in track and field, I think it comes with a lot more benefits to study. Not even to study, but to run track or to even do sports in the US because it comes with a lot more benefits than if I stayed in Jamaica. Like I think the scholarships come with, yeah, I think it's just more beneficial for me to go to the US because a lot of the scholarships down here in Jamaica only comes with track, if that makes sense. Like I feel like in the US it comes in a full package almost.
So, go deeper into that. Like, let's go deeper into that. So, like, what would be the full package? Like, the difference between, running at, university in Jamaica compared to like what more resources do you get running at a university in the United States than you do in Jamaica?
Yeah, I think in terms of dorming, that would be nicer. And I think they place a lot more emphasis in academics in the US than it is in Jamaica, where it's more sports based for your scholarship. Because if you come on a sports scholarship, it's kind of strictly sports. But in the US, it's an all round type of thing. So you have to be good in your academics in terms of like joining. I think they have a lot more societies in the US as well, so you can get more involved outside of your sports and outside of your academics. So I think that's something that come with it. And yeah, I think they just help you to become an more rounded athlete in terms of being a student athlete than in Jamaica, where it's more focus on sports.
So was that your goal? Like when you decided to, to pursue track and field in college, was your goal to be able to, have a degree that so that you could be able to, develop yourself not just only as an athlete, but as a student and a person as well?
Yeah, as much as I love track, I also really like academics. I really like learning and I like school, which is kind of strange to say, but I do like school and I want to be proud of my degree. And that was one of the main reasons because sometimes track can be a bit exhausting, but I really do it because it can help me go further in life. And that's one of the reasons why I do it as much as I like it. That's the main reason to help me go further in my academics.
Yeah, that's definitely important when you talk about like it's just like a gateway. Like I think people don't understand that sports can be a gateway to
Yeah,
be able to do different things in life. So like it's not just the point of sports is not just always to become a professional athlete or to make a lot of money from the sport, but
yeah,
it could be a pathway to be able to get an education at a school that you might not have been able to do just academically, and also to get connections in certain fields that you wouldn't have if you were just a regular student at a school.
yeah.
That's definitely important to note. So more back to your recruiting process. So your experience definitely has been different to a lot of international athletes. Many, like including myself, came to high school in the United States first so that they could get noticed easier from college coaches. So how were you able to get noticed by college coaches?
Okay, it was extremely difficult. Like on one hand, you did have like a handful of coaches that reached out to you, but it was coaches that were familiar with sports in Jamaica and would be willing to reach out to you because a lot of coaches don't really know anything about, like they know that Jamaica is good at track and stuff like that, but they don't keep up with it and they don't know a lot of athletes. So for most of the schools that I spoke to, I had to reach out first, and you had to go on the school website, find their emails, find their cell phone numbers and stuff like that. And sometimes they have questionnaires on their website that you have to fill out. So I did all of that. But for a handful of them, they did reach out to my coaches. But in my experience, I think it was coaches that were already familiar with Jamaica, or even coaches that came to the boys and girls championships. So a lot of the time I just had to reach out first. And it was kind of difficult because for the most part they did not answer. They did not answer their emails and stuff like that. So it was a long process and I started really early and I think it was really helpful because I had maybe 5 friends that did track that was looking in my year that was looking to study in the US as well. So we would all spend time together researching schools and looking up the school information, just reaching out to coaches, and hopefully a school will stick. Yeah,
Yeah, I think one important thing that I heard there is, talking about not being able to like not getting coaches that won't answer
yeah,
sometimes. Like a lot of that people don't understand that there's like it's not really necessarily because you don't have the talent, but sometimes coaches are just bad at recruiting and then they just don't
yeah,
answer. And sometimes like there's a lot of schools that you thought like you'd be easily a good fit there, but they
yeah,
wouldn't answer. So how
yeah.
did you deal with that when college coaches, like schools that you were really interested in, didn't answer your emails or phone calls or questionnaires that you sent to them?
Yeah, it was extremely difficult, and sometimes you find yourself setting your sights on one school that you think is attainable, and it just does not work out. And I think you just have to know within yourself that not every school that you want to go to will work out. So you just have to keep trying because that's also one thing that I didn't really know was, yes, I knew that there were a lot of schools in the US, but I didn't know about a lot of them. So it was it was more knowledge based because you have to think about how many different schools that there are in the US that you can actually go to. So during that journey, I found so many schools that I've never heard anything about, just trying to find a good fit for you. So I think that's one thing that's also really important. Research, and there's so many options out there for you that you might not know of because you're not in the US or you don't really have anybody to help you necessarily, but there are so many schools out there. So I think that was something that was really comforting to me, because even though the school that I really wanted to go to didn't answer me, or they didn't want to recruit me, there's always somebody else that is willing to do that.
Yeah, even when you're in the US, I was in the US for 3 years before I went to college, and I didn't know about a bunch of schools. When I was looking through my process, I learned about so many schools, and even now while I'm in college, I'm learning about different schools, just even through like social media, or like just seeing
Yeah.
schools that like have done well in like swimming. I'm learning about so many schools now, so it's just really an ongoing learning process like the entire way.
Yeah.
So, in the process, what are some of the schools you looked at originally?
I looked at, well, let's see if I can remember. I looked at the University of Nebraska, uh, University of Oklahoma. Um, oh Lord, I do not remember this. I feel like it was such a long time ago. Um, just I do not remember. Hold on, let me think about it. I spoke to Aura Roberts. I also spoke to Texas Tech. I spoke to University of Arizona. I spoke to Albany. Uh, I briefly spoke to University of Minnesota, but nothing really happened there. I spoke to University of Central Florida, Jacksonville. That's all I can remember right now.
That's a pretty big list, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, it usually starts out. They also usually start out pretty big. So was that list fueled by knowing Jamaicans that went, or other Caribbean people that went to those schools? Because I know some of the schools that you mentioned, just like remembering them and just watching track and field. I know that a lot of Jamaican athletes go to some of those schools. So was that fueled by that?
Yeah. So a lot of people that I knew, those were just schools that I was familiar with based off of people that I knew that went there. So that's where it kind of stemmed from. And then it also involves the schools that reached out to my coach, showing interest in me.
Nice, nice. So I know it's tough to go on visits when you're in a different country, like recruiting visits. Were you able to visit any of the schools that you were looking at?
I only actually visited one school, and that was the school I went to. It was Liberty. Oh, I
So
forgot to say Liberty was interested, but yeah, I went on a visit to Liberty
so
University.
how did you so just going on that one visit, like, and I know you were looking at other schools as well. How were you able
Mhm.
to get a feel for schools without physically going there before?
All I had to do really was just go off of research and just base everything off of what the coaches were telling me and just researching it myself. And if I knew somebody that went there, then I would ask them how they like it. But that's all I really had to go off of, really. Kind of blind faith.
So, how did you decide on Liberty?
Okay, so Liberty, it's actually kind of difficult for me to choose to go to Liberty because that was not my first option at all. But in my experience, like a lot of coaches that gave me offers pulled them back last minute, like saying that they didn't have any money, or where one school told me that instead of recruiting one international athlete, they would prefer to use the money to recruit two American athletes. So it was a lot of like, they say they'll do this and then they do the opposite, or sometimes they even ghost you. And then because it was coming up so late, like I chose one school that I wanted to go to, and in the last minute they were like, actually, never mind. So it was so late because I already chose to go to that one school. I didn't really have the option of the others, only Liberty, because that was Liberty was a late offer. So the visit was very impromptu. It was very last minute. Hopped on a flight, and I think that was maybe the second time I've been to the US. I think so.
Wow.
It's very scary. It was by myself. I didn't have my parent. My mom didn't come with me. It was. It was very scary. And Lynchburg is almost, I think, I don't know if you consider it the country, but it was a very small airport. And it was very scary to me, but it was all very rushed. So that was the last option that I had. And I took it because I didn't want to wait until, because some schools give you the opportunity to come in January. And I really didn't want to take that gap between the summer and the springs, between the fall semester and the spring semester, because that was also really risky, because I didn't want the same thing that happened in the fall to happen again, where they say actually never mind. So I just took the offer, and I liked the visit. It was a really good visit, and I liked the school, so I just went to Liberty.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, how was your experience there your first year? How was it adjusting to being so far away from home for the first time?
It actually wasn't bad. I don't know what I thought. I thought I'd be more homesick than I was, but I really wasn't. I think I found it pretty easy to assimilate into America, and it wasn't bad. The only thing is, I don't know, not the atmosphere, but just I'm not really sure how to explain it, because the atmosphere was really nice and the people were really nice, but it just wasn't the best fit for me. But I actually enjoyed the school. They have good activities, but it just was not a good fit for me at all.
So, I'm guessing that's because not being a good fit was the reason why you decided to transfer.
Yeah,
And that, because I mean, you did seem like you were doing well in track there, and you seemed like things are going well for you based on what you were saying. So, it was just kind of
yeah,
just not the fit.
yeah.
So, then how did you go about requesting the transfer, and just entering the NCAA transfer portal and everything like that?
Okay, so all I had to do was to contact the compliance so they can help me go into the transfer portal. But it's kind of a difficult decision, because it was so hard to get, not really hard to get into Liberty, but the process of coming to the US was extremely difficult and taxing. And I was like, I'm not really sure if I want to do this all over again just a year later, because it was really stressful on my mom too. And she was she was kind of nervous for me to transfer, because she was like, what if it doesn't work out and this is that? And it was really stressful on her. So I understood like where she was coming from. But I was like, I don't think it's benefiting me academically or sports wise to stay at Liberty, even if it was for another year. So I was like, might as well just do it now instead of waiting till later to do it. And that's also one of the reasons I decided to transfer, because I wanted to change my major to engineering. And Liberty, I think they had a civil engineer program, but it wasn't a very strong one, or like something that, I don't know, it wasn't pulling me to change my major there. And that's something that I really wanted to do. So I just contacted the compliance and asked them, told them that I'm requesting a transfer, and they just put me in the transfer portal. Yeah.
Nice. And looking back at that decision to go to Liberty in the first place, do you what do you think back on that decision? Do you think that you wish you might have waited, or not picked, because it kind of seemed like when you were talking about it that it was more like your last option, in
Mhm.
terms of that it was just because you got the offer there and it was your last option that you took it. Did you
Yeah.
wish that maybe you had waited for maybe another semester, or for maybe or maybe taking a lesser offer and trying to build it through performances in the next year, or did you or was that or do you think that you needed that experience at Liberty?
Yeah, I don't regret it at all. Even though it was my last option, I just really appreciate that I took that step, because it really put my foot into the door. Because who knows what would have happened if I decided to wait? Maybe I would have never left Jamaica. I don't know. But I'm glad that I went there. Even though it wasn't the best fit, it kind of just gave me that push that I needed to just get my journey started. And I really didn't want to delay getting started in college either, because I kind of want to be done very quickly. So I didn't want to delay anything. So I didn't regret it at all. But sometimes it depends on the person. So it might have benefited somebody else to maybe wait, because I've seen a couple people do that. But I don't know. I think I made a good decision going to Liberty.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, that's good to note that there's no really regrets of
Yeah.
going there. So now, how'd you start that because you had to go through now a whole new recruiting process since you
Yeah.
were in the transfer portal. How did you go about that one? How was it different from the one that you had to do when you were in Jamaica?
I feel like it was maybe a lot easier because once you go into the transfer portal, a lot of coaches are always, I'm not sure if they get a notification about when athletes go into the transfer portal, but a lot more coaches reach out to you and they're probably aware of you based on, being in the US and you have a US record. So they're probably already aware of you. So once you go into the transfer portal, a lot of coaches like reached out to me immediately as soon as I went to the transfer portal. So in terms of getting offers, I think it was a lot easier transferring than it was coming into the US from Jamaica. Yeah.
And was Villanova the only school you were looking at when you were looking
No,
to transfer?
no, I was thinking it was between Villanova, University of Virginia, and University of Kansas. Yeah.
Nice. And what did you look at Villanova when you were first, or any of those schools when you were first looking at colleges back in Jamaica?
Actually, no, I wasn't. I think Villanova was actually where my friend wanted to go to. That's how I was familiar with the school because I was trying to help her to come here. So that's how I was familiar with Villanova. But they were never like my first initial when I was in high school. I didn't really know much about them before, but yeah.
So what drew you to Villanova this time
Um,
around?
it was mainly the academics, if I'm being honest, and the engineering program, because at that time I was kind of frustrated with track, and I was like, I don't know if I want to base my decision off of track, to go to which school. I would want to go to a school that has a good track team because I'll be doing it for 3 years or even 4 years coming on. But I wanted to focus mainly on my academics. And especially since I was changing my major to engineering, I wanted to go to a school with a good engineering program. So really, it really came down to University of Virginia and Villanova. So it was between those two. Yeah.
Nice. And how has your experience been at Villanova? How was moving and adjusting to a whole new place in a foreign country again?
Yeah. It was actually really, I think it was really good because the people on my team were they were my first point of contact. Like when I got here, my coach like introduced me to some people on the team, and I think we may have had two Jamaicans on the team at that time. So I really got accustomed to them, and they were really helpful. So I think that's what made it easier in a way to adjust to Villanova because at Liberty I didn't know any Caribbean people there. So yeah, coming to Villanova, even though it was just two people, it was kind of easier. And also my coach is Jamaican, so he kind of understood where I'm coming from. Yeah, it was just very comfortable moving into Villanova. It wasn't any stress or anything to move in.
So how was having a Jamaican coach at Villanova was that any influence on your decision of coming there?
Yeah, it was. And ironically, the coach at Virginia was also Jamaican. So I really liked both of them, but I just had to pick one. But yeah, it's really nice because you can talk to them about things in high school that happens in high school and they actually understand what you're talking about. Because sometimes a lot of coaches don't even know what boys and girls championships are. And you can talk to them about your experiences because they'll understand, or like something that you're going through, you can talk to them about it because they know where you're coming from. So that did help my decision.
Nice. Nice. All right. Last question. What advice would you give to international athletes who are trying to make the move from their home countries to the United States for college? What did you wish you knew about the college process beforehand? Like things you might have, missed out on, things that you have learned through, your experience from, going to Liberty, then transferring to Villanova, and both those joint experiences.
Okay, so one thing I may have missed out on is maybe contacting more schools than I did, but that was just because I didn't know. So an advice that I'd like to give is just do your research and just reach out to as many schools as you possibly can because there's so many schools out there with the scholarships and that are willing to give you money just for coming and running, or not even running, but just doing sports for them. So I think you should do a better, but like cast a wider net basically, instead of sticking to just the colleges you've heard about, because there's so many places out there that's willing to offer you a good scholarship to represent them. And also something that I would love, an advice I love to give is when you come to the US, just always have an open mind. I think that's what made it much easier for me, because I didn't, not that I didn't come in with expectations, but I just came in with a much open mind, knowing that there are people different from you, people that grew up differently from you, have different views. And just having an open mind, I think, helps you build friendships and build relationships that you probably didn't expect to coming into university. So I think that's an important thing to do once you're coming to college in the US. And I think you'll have a better time that way than coming in with a closed mind.
Yeah, that's great advice.
Yeah.
Jada, I want to thank you for joining me on Inside Sports Recruiting today. I look
Yeah.
forward to continue seeing you do great things in the classroom and on the track.
Thank you, Jesse.
Well, that's it, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Make sure to follow our page, Inside Sports Pod, on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Inside Sports Recruiting, so you can stay up to date on all the latest on Inside Sports Recruiting.